Remnants from Hurricane Ida slamming the Northeast last night, causing tornadoes, heavy rain, and flooding. The storm leaving at least 29 people dead, according to an NBC News tally. New York City and New Jersey declaring a state of emergency. FirstEnergy's New Jersey customers among those impacted, with 81,000 customers losing power. As of this afternoon, power had been restored to about 65% of those affected. Let's bring in FirstEnergy CEO Stephen Straw, who joins us in a Closing Bell exclusive interview. Stephen, thanks for being with us, especially given the fact that I imagine it's been very busy, given everything we're seeing. In terms of the restoration process right now, be it in New Jersey or some of the other states in which you provide electricity, how are those efforts going currently? And did this come unexpected, or were you braced and your crews braced for this much damage potentially?
Well, Morgan, it's my pleasure to be with you, and this has been a very difficult event. We've actually been tracking the impact of Ida in two ways. Number one, we wanted to help our fellow utilities in the South that have been devastated by this event. So we have allocated 500 workers to do the very tough and diligent work to restore in the South. We also understood, and through some of the predictive tools we have in weather tracking, that there could be an impact through the other states we operate in our 5-state territory. And sure enough, we were impacted. There's 175,000 customers affected throughout West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and particularly New Jersey was hard hit. It's about 175,000 customers. Overall, we're about 80% restored, but we still have some very tough work to do. New Jersey clearly was our most difficult area impacted. I've personally worked storms for 30 years and lived and worked in New Jersey for 5 years. And we are working very hard as quickly as we can to restore power while keeping our employees and public safe.
Yeah, I mean, as you're talking, we're showing some of the images from the Northeast and everything we saw with this storm overnight as well. As somebody who has worked storms for 30 years, is it that the storms are getting more dramatic? Is it that the infrastructure in general at this state and at this stage, I should say, is more at risk and in need of updating? How would you assess the situation? Because it does seem like in recent years we've had some storms. They weren't even hurricane category necessarily, but they've swept through the region and they've done a lot of damage.
Morgan, I would think about it in terms of frequency. I think we have more frequently seen storms, not necessarily superstorms, but what I would call major storms occur with more frequency, at least within our footprint. And I think you're seeing that in the United States also. I think the utility industry as a whole in the electric utility space has done a good job of understanding and addressing building in additional resiliency to our transmission and distribution systems. But is it enough right now in the here and now? I would say the answer is no. We expend about $3 billion on an annual basis in our transmission and distribution systems. But we're going to have to keep that steady state spending and provide greater automation within the systems, refresh and renew infrastructure where needed. And then lastly, we have to learn lessons from the past. So if we go back to the 2012 timeframe during Superstorm Sandy, we saw a number of our substations in New Jersey flood very badly. We ended up putting flood mitigation equipment in place. And even with the once in a 1,000-year rainstorm, which is my perspective I put on the East Coast, we did not see any of our substations flood out such that we lost any source supply for them. So we do have to learn from the past and apply those lessons forward. And, you know, that's kind of my assessment of where we're at presently.
Stephen, I think you said that of the homes that lost power in New Jersey, about 85% have seen that restored already. What about the final 15%? Are we talking about it'll be restored by tomorrow, or some of them hit hard enough that we're talking weeks away to getting their power back?
I would think of our New Jersey customers that are outaged in within the next day or two. I think you will see some outages extend into the weekend, regrettably. And these are more of the isolated areas up in our Sussex County, very remote area where we have a lot of wind and tree damage. You have to restore those customers kind of one at a time, but I would say a majority of all customers will be restored late tomorrow night. I would also just want to recognize and acknowledge our workforce that's in the field doing this very difficult, dangerous work while they're coordinating with state and local officials on the ground there. We have very good working relationships with Governor Murphy and his team. And our team's doing a very good job of keeping themselves and the public safe, even following some of the pandemic protocols that we still are following, given our current situation.
Yeah.